because it's like, it doesn't do anything. It's the recording on the TV board.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're gonna have a busy night tonight, so Joe, why don't you start the attendance, please?
Ms. Cimaroli,
Here,
Mr. Tolmer. Here. Mr. Livingston. Here. Ms. Giuliani.
I'm Zoom.
Here.
And Ms. Bellamore.
Here.
All right, thank you all for attending this evening. Is there anybody signed up for any discussion?
I'll try.
Okay, Mr. Fryer, please state your name and address,
I'll
please.
be glad to, and I'll be short.
Is this on the agenda or for the, just curious?
No, it's concerning the comprehensive plan. I just want to give you some
All right.
information. My name's Robert Fryer. I live at 508 Hunter's Path, Ridgeville. That's actually in South Fayette Township. What I wanted to bring to your attention was something I've brought to your attention a dozen times. You see the drawing in the middle there with the 8 numbered roads leading to it? Those obviously are all the roads leading to Bridgeville. You'll notice there are 2 roads there that are heavier highlighted compared to the others. The ones going left and right, that's Route 50 Washington Pike, and to the right is a section of Bower Hill Road that's 4 lanes. But what I want to emphasize again is the 4-lane widening of both of those roads by PennDOT and Allegheny County were not continued through Bridgeville. As a result of the traffic congestion, you have 2-lane wide bottlenecks, and which caused the collapse of both business districts and creates all sorts of problems. A couple things I just wanted to show you that you can think about. That the drawing on the right is the Bridgeville Historical Society building, which is a train station. I moved the caboose to the right end of the station, which creates a larger visual graphic for it. It makes it more impressive. The reason I did that is down below, you can see that that's the Railroad Street intersection. Railroad Street, by the way, is 6 feet wider than Washington Avenue. It's 36 feet, Washington Avenue is 30. That allows, by moving the caboose to the end of the building, it allows a right turn stacking lane for cars that are come off of Bower Hill Road, which is a very important consumer motorist road for us, and be able to turn right toward the central business district. And also, it still allows the left turn lane going the opposite direction, but the coming down Station Street, that intersection by the Gulf gas station, I'm suggesting that you re-radius that turn, increase the radius on it so it's easier to travel. And the other thing I wanted to mention to you is, for many years, all the years I've been here, and the years many of you guys have been here, the elected officials in Bridgeville were overly sensitive about offending voters, and a lot of the projects that were proposed in terms of improvement of roads and parking lots were turned down by them. And what I want to emphasize to you guys tonight is the members of the Planning Commission are probably the most important 5 people in the community today, because you're elected. You can develop theoretical, idealistic, the best possible improvements for the community, which will be involved in the comprehensive plan, obviously. And I think I'd like you to understand your importance at the present time. All right? Hey, thanks.
Thanks,
Bob. You're welcome.
All right, no one else? Okay, moving on. Adoption of minutes for January 24th, 2022. Any questions, changes, or comments in regards to the to the minutes? All right, I need a
motion.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now, moving on to the big ticket items here. New business. Tonight is the official comprehensive plan update of 2022. And to share with us her knowledge is Brandy Roselli. All right, so Brandy will give us a synopsis of what we can expect,
Sure.
and we'll work from there.
Okay,
Okay?
all right. Do you want me to just,
You can,
Wherever you're
wherever
comfortable.
you're comfortable.
I'll just sit here if that's
Yeah.
okay? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So, first of all, thank you so much. I'm really happy, after a long interview process, Q&A, the borough did select Mackin to update your comprehensive plan, so we're really excited. We were involved in the 2005 plan as well, so we're familiar with Bridgeville, and we're excited to help you move into this next chapter and decide what is best for the borough moving forward over the next 10 to 20 years. So I am just going to give you a brief synopsis of our process, what a comprehensive plan is. If anyone, it's very informal, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to just let me know as we're going through. I'd be happy to answer. If I don't know the answers, I'll get them for you. But our team, we do have, Mackin is the prime consultant, but we do have a team. We have Denny Pucco, who was formerly of the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. So he's very familiar with planning in Pennsylvania, so he'll be a great asset and resource as part of our team. And then we also have Todd Poole, who is with Forward Planning. They do economic development and market analysis. So he'll be able to help us with anything dealing with your business district, improvements there, or what might be good for the future of economic development and business development within the borough. So we do have those two team members as well. They're not with me tonight, but they will be heavily involved as we move through the process. So, as Bob mentioned, Planning Commission is very important in the borough, particularly with planning and comprehensive plans. So you as members of the Planning Commission will be heavily involved, hopefully, in the planning process and getting us through the adoption with council. So in general, a comprehensive plan is a guiding document. It is a blueprint. It is not legally binding. It's not zoning, but it helps to inform your zoning and other ordinances. But it is a guiding document that a community should update about every 10 years or so. So I think the last one was done in '05, so this is good timing. It's a little overdue, but I'm glad that you're getting started on this very important project. And a comprehensive plan covers many topics. It looks at transportation, it looks at economic development, it looks at housing, parks and recreation, community facilities. And the way we do comprehensive plans now is more issue-based. So rather than making sure that we have a chapter on all of those various elements, a comprehensive plan will help the community identify what are the major issues facing the borough over the next 10 to 20 years, and then how do we address those issues. So all of those elements will be addressed through the plan, but they will be addressed through looking at the issues, not a particular element as a whole. We find that that's more successful for communities to be able to implement and identify priority projects. So that's kind of the process. It's called an implementable plan. So that's what we'll be following for your project. And again, Denny from DCED, retired from DCED, he was one of the two people who developed the implementable plan process. So again, very happy to have him as part of our team. He'll be a great asset as we move through. So what the process will entail is basically we'll be looking at existing conditions, visioning, what is the vision, so existing condition, what exists now, we'll look at plans, we'll look at your current land use, what is happening in the borough now in terms of your demographics and all of that. Then visioning, what is your vision for the future, what are those major issues that we need to be focusing on, and then an action plan, how do we address those issues. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward process, but it will take us about a year to get through. So just so everybody's clear, we're not going to have a comprehensive plan next month. It's about a year-long process, so we hope that everyone will stay engaged through that time frame. And as part of a comprehensive plan, public involvement is very important. So we have various methods to gather input from the public. We'll be meeting with the steering committee regularly, so I know Joe and people from the borough are working on that steering committee now. We hope that planning commission members will be a part of that, if not all of you, at least some of you, again, because you have a very important role in the process, and other interested stakeholders that the borough will appoint and identify will be part of that committee. So we'll meet with them on a regular basis to help guide the process, to review material before we make it public and all of that kind of thing to help us through. We will be having public meetings, public work sessions. So those will be events or meetings that we have that are where we invite the entire public to come in and talk about the comprehensive plan and help us to identify what's important and what should be in the plan. We also will be doing public surveys. We normally do those online because they're just more efficient and cost effective. We can make them available in printed versions though. We'll work with the borough to determine how best to get those surveys out to the general public. We'll do those at key points throughout the process. So there will be several rounds of public surveys. And then stakeholders. So people with a particular knowledge or interest in a topic that's being covered up by the comprehensive plan, we'll reach out to those folks individually, either through interviews or if there's a group of people around a particular issue that the borough is identifying as very important, we could do a focus group as well. So there's different ways that we can reach out to the stakeholders, and we'll determine that as we move through the process. Again, we'd like to involve the stakeholders several times, so we don't just talk to them at the beginning and then they forget about the plan. We'd like to keep them involved as we move through, because hopefully they'll be partners for implementation, because the borough can't do everything on its own. They're going to need partners, it's going to need funding, so that's where we try to draw on people as we're developing the plan, identifying those folks that we think, oh hey, this organization or this group could probably really help with this recommendation or this action item. Keep them involved and interested so that hopefully they'll be willing to be those implementation partners. I think that's web and social media outreach. We'll use the borough's existing website, any social media sites that are active in the community. We'll utilize those to primarily get the word out if we're having a meeting or if we have a survey or if we're looking for information. So we'll utilize the electronic media as much as possible as well. Depending on the situation with COVID or with whatever is going on at the time, we can meet in person or via Zoom or other online methods, so we're definitely open to all those types. Again, we'll work with the borough and the steering committee as we're going through at that time when we're planning for meetings or public outreach to see what is best for the community and to keep everybody interested and safe and all of that. And at the end, so once we go through the process where we gather the information, we identify the issues, we build that action plan, we've gathered all of the public input, we'll develop your draft plan, and then you'll go through an adoption process. So there's a definite adoption process that you have to follow to adopt the comprehensive plan. And as part of that, the Planning Commission will have the responsibility of reviewing that final draft plan, making a recommendation to council to move forward with adoption. So you have a very, very big role in the comprehensive plan, especially in the adoption process. There will be a 45-day comment period where we will send the plan to surrounding municipalities, your school district, your county, make it available for the public. At the end of that, Borough Council will hold a public hearing for adoption. So that's it in a nutshell in terms of the process. I know that's a lot of information. Anyone have any questions?
Historically, I was on a planning commission in another state, another place. Historically, I've seen strategic plans, comprehensive plans, they get written, they get put on the shelf. An implementable plan, is that like a cross between a comprehensive plan and a strategic plan?
Kind of, yes. Yes, because it is more targeted, like a strategic plan. So rather than being a huge encyclopedia of every piece of information that we could gather about all of the elements regarding the borough, it's really honing in on what are the major issues. I'm sorry, I have a really dry throat. The major issues that are facing the borough, and what are those recommendations that can help address the issues. So rather than having 50 to 100 recommendations that you're looking to tackle, we're going to prioritize that down to maybe your top 10, 15 that really should be looked at first. And what we like to do as part of our processes is, as we're going through, identify a project that's easy, that's not going to cost a lot of money, that's not going to use up a bunch of resources, but let's identify something that can be done even before the plan is adopted, and we start building that momentum and show success, and then people will think, okay, this is really going to happen. It's not going to just sit on the shelf. They are serious about that. And as part of our planning process, we're going to identify an implementation team. A lot of times that is the Planning Commission. Sometimes it's just members of the Planning Commission with other stakeholders. But what that team is going to be responsible for is reviewing that comprehensive plan several times a year. You're not going to meet every week, we're not going to put that burden on that group, but maybe quarterly you meet, you review, okay, what are the action items that we're working on for this quarter, what is Borough Council supporting, what have we identified funding for, and you'll be reporting to Borough Council on the status of the comprehensive plan and the implementation of that plan. And there should be an annual report that outlines what you did in that year, what you're looking towards for next year. All of that helps keep the implementation moving forward.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Will you provide a timeline for what you expect from us, or when we can expect to meet?
Yes, yeah, we'll have a regular meeting scheduled for the comprehensive plan. I
Okay.
assume that's what
Right,
you can
right.
get. Yeah, so the steering committee will have a regular meeting schedule. We can, if that is planning commission, all of planning commission, then obviously you'll be there at those meetings. If it's just a portion of planning commission, we can also provide regular updates to the planning commission, and then your members that serve on that committee
Okay,
will be reporting back. But there will be a meeting schedule for sure.
okay.
Do you have any recommendations about who should be on the steering committee?
Again, definitely planning commission, as many members as are willing to serve. Elected officials are always good to have on a steering committee, at least one or two elected officials, because they are the ones making financial and other decisions for the borough, and they will be the ones responsible for adopting and ultimately implementing the plan with help from the implementation team. And then, if there are key stakeholders that have a particular interest or expertise, especially in something that is going to be included in the plan, those are good resources to have as part of the steering committee. I recommend it not be more than 10 to 15 members, because you want to have a manageable group. If you get too many people involved, then it's hard to get anything accomplished. So I found 10 to 15 members is usually a good number, even more towards that 10 to 12 number. But, all of that is up to the borough. We'll work with whatever committee.
But then you can do focus groups, though,
Oh, yes,
correct?
we will do public meetings, focus groups, other types of meetings. So the steering committee is not the only people that are going to be involved,
Yeah,
obviously,
okay.
in the plan. But we can definitely do focus groups with the stakeholders as well.
Okay,
And those will probably happen, one more towards the beginning, not the very beginning, but after we gather some material and information, and then probably another outreach to them towards the end of the plan after recommendations are done.
okay.
So when we leave here tonight, what's the first thing you want us to do?
So I do have some homework for you.
All right, there you go. All right.
Oh, and also, for those serving on the steering committee, you will you can expect to have regular communication either from me or through Joe. From me, we'll decide how we're going to communicate with that group. So what we like to do is give material in advance of meetings so that you can review it and then come to the meeting prepared to discuss, so people aren't sitting at the meeting reading through what we're going to do that night. Everybody should be prepared and aware of what we're going to be discussing at that meeting and come, prepared to discuss that. So just, that's an FYI as part of the steering committee, some responsibilities. But in terms of your homework, some things that I would like to get from you, are there any existing documents that we should be aware of? Now, Joe has definitely given us quite a few, so I think we probably have that covered. But if there are any historical documents or things that you think would be important, that you may have personally or as part of another committee, something you've served on in the community, even if it's not Bridgeville, if it's county related or regional related, that's good too. Stakeholders, start thinking about who are those people. I need to have names, contact information, and so working with the Planning Commission, borough staff, that'll be very important and helpful for us, because we obviously aren't going to know who those folks are.
You want stakeholders broken up into like groups, like
If you could identify, yes, what is their...
these are business owners,
Yes.
these are people who are affected by flooding.
Correct, or these are folks that have knowledge about, housing issues in the borough, or this is a group that works with parks and recreation, like if you have a park and rec board.
Yeah.
Obviously, those would be folks, there would be stakeholders regarding park and recreation. So yes, so their name or organization name, email, phone number, and then what is their kind of expertise or topic area. Those are the kinds of things I'm looking for in regard to stakeholders.
Okay, so if you had somebody that was a young real estate agent that had 3 kids and, she can fill many multiple positions.
Yeah, she
She's
sounds good.
multitasking.
She sounds good, yeah.
Okay, all right.
That sounds like a good person. Yeah.
Who is she? Okay.
I think you're marrying her.
Well,
I have a question,
yes.
a couple questions. First of all, would you want like a cough drop?
I would, thank you so much. That is very nice of you.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. The people in Bridgeville for about 50 years have had some difficult times, not only in terms of paying a certain higher percentage of their modest annual incomes compared to some of the other communities. And the other thing I'd like, and in terms of health, because we've been living in a community where the west winds have polluted the air for 50 or more years. Studies have been done for years, and even advertised in the newspapers within the last year about how it's reduced their lifespans, created pulmonary problems and so on. What I'm asking you is, when you and the council and the officials in Bridgeville appeal to the federal, state, and county funding agencies, would the hard times our people have suffered under, would that contribute toward them getting millions of dollars in grants that we need to implement the comprehensive plan?
I can't say for sure, yes or no. It would depend on the type of grant we were looking to secure. But data like that, that shows particular issues that are affecting the community and the people living here, being able to include that in grant applications as support as to why you need the funding, for sure, is definitely helpful. And projects or tasks that are identified in your comprehensive plan are also going to bolster and strengthen any grant applications that you're doing at the federal and state level. They want to see that these projects are included in your comprehensive plan, so it's important that we're strategic as part of this process and identifying the appropriate projects and things that need to be in the plan. I talked about those kind of top 10 to 15 priorities. There can be other things that we talk about in the plan, maybe in an appendix or in a later section of the plan, so that you're not limiting yourself to only, because maybe something might change in the future and something might rise to the top, or a funding source might become available. So those things, we can include more than that in the plan, but we really want to focus on top priorities, again, to get to your earlier question about not having a plan sit on the shelf. If it's overwhelming, there's less of a chance that it's going to get implemented because people won't know where to start.
I have another question too, in terms of funding. The two main roads that are the economic foundation for the community are Route 50 Washington Pike and Bower Hill Road. A few years ago, when there have been several firms that have recommended, for example, creating two one-way streets with an existing street, a parallel street. At any rate, when I approached PennDOT about these plans 8 or 9 years ago, one of the officials told me Bridgeville would have to pay for transforming the parallel street, Shady Avenue, into parallel streets, 3 lanes and 3 lanes. At any rate, later, another public official from Harrisburg told me, I was misinformed. He said that the primary north-south traffic flow on Washington Pike, Route 50, is PennDOT's responsibility, not Bridgeville's. And it would be up to PennDOT to solve the problem or solve a solution you come up with and pay for 80% of it or 90% of it or something like that. I was just wondering if the comprehensive plan can attract county officials to complete the Bower Hill Road, state officials to complete the, whatever has to be done to solve the terrible traffic congestion problem.
So it can help for sure if a project is identified, if a transportation project, traffic project is identified in your comprehensive plan. PennDOT's process goes beyond comprehensive plans. Obviously, they have their TIP and their their long-range plan, where they identify projects by county that they're going to be working on and give funding for. So having those projects in your comprehensive plan and involving PennDOT, we've worked with PennDOT on other comprehensive plans, in that we will make them aware of what we're looking at, of what's coming to the forefront in terms of recommendations. When we worked in Connellsville with the Crawford Avenue Bridge, we had PennDOT as part of that comprehensive planning process as a stakeholder. So we can definitely reach out to the district. They would be a great stakeholder, especially if transportation is something that is going to be rising to the forefront. And then having it in your comprehensive plan, taking that to SPC, who is the organization that helps to formulate the TIP with PennDOT. There's definitely a process, so just having it in your comp plan doesn't mean that PennDOT's going to fund it, but it certainly helps.
I mean, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but anytime we go after a project or grant funding, it's, when we have a plan in place, whether it's from comprehensive plan or we had our engineers look at it and stuff, people always say, well, why are we paying to having this person do it? Because we already know it needs to be done. We can't just go to PennDOT and say, hey, we know this needs done, give us money. So, that's what we're doing this for, Bob, is so they can recommend, hey, this is how you have this traffic issue, this is the best way to fix it, and then we go to PennDOT.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that the best way to fix it is this or that or your plan, whatever, but that's what we have.
That's what the process is for. And just as an FYI, I didn't explain this a lot for those of you who aren't familiar with Mackin. We aren't just planners. We do have transportation, highway, bridge engineers on staff, as well as landscape architects, civil engineers. So my team is much bigger than just me or my planning department. So if we need my traffic engineers to come here and look at a particular project or to help us with a recommendation regarding transportation through the borough. We have those resources, and that's part of the plan. We're not gonna charge you separately for that. So just so you know, we do have other team members. We're a multidisciplinary firm, more than just planners.
So back to homework. We
Oh,
have
yes.
existing docs,
Yes, so,
stakeholders into
so
groups.
existing documents, stakeholders, I know you, I don't know, I think there was one new planning commission member.
There's two,
Two.
the other one's on.
Okay, hi there. When the RFP was developed last year, the planning commission did go through a process where you identified some areas of concern, which is very helpful. So any additional information that any of you have, you know, you live here, you're part of the planning commission, what are the issues that you see are going to be important? Again, it's not, that doesn't mean that that's the final list, but just to help us get started. So what are those issues? Joe, does everyone have the RFP, the planning
Yes.
commission?
Yes.
So look back, it's at the end of the RFP, the request for proposals that was
It
put
was
out.
the slides.
Right,
If you
right.
remember, we did.
Yeah, so those are these projects that they
Right,
had.
right.
So take a look at that, refresh your memory on those. Are there any additional, is there anything else that we need to be looking at that you feel? So yeah, existing documentation, issues, and stakeholders. Those are the three main things that I would like to, if you can put together that information and send it to Joe, you know, over the next few weeks as we're putting the steering committee together so that we could have that when we have our first meeting, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah, those spreadsheets that were part of the RFP.
Yes.
I mean, that was an exercise that planning commission did, going through the old comp plan and saying, okay, you know, these are issues that have been hanging out there for
Right,
years, decades. Here's how we think we want to address it, or here's some ideas for it, but, you know, hopefully you guys can take that and
Right.
expound upon
we
it.
can, yes, this is a great starting point. We don't normally have this level of information when we're starting a plan, so I commend you for doing that, for making that as part of the RFP. It was very helpful, and it's going to be helpful for us moving forward. We're kind of starting ahead of the game, so that's a good thing.
It's thanks to Dale and Tim and everybody else who's on the crowd at the same time. I do have one other question. In your scope of work, and I'm assuming, is this from you? Your,
That one pager?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You described a field view.
Field view, yes.
What do you consider a field view?
So that's when we're going, and there will probably be multiple field views. I think it might have just been a single one in the scope, but that is when we physically come to the borough to drive around or walk around and see what's happening here.
Okay.
We see the issues in person. We'd be happy to have folks along with us when we do those field views from the planning commission or borough staff, because again, you're living here, you know these firsthand, so you could be pointing things out to us.
Okay.
We have a van, so we could take, 5 people with us if we need to, or if it's a walking tour, as, we get into spring. So we can see these pedestrian and traffic issues on the ground, would be helpful. So that's what field views are.
Okay. I'm assuming that we're going to be able to get the copy of the active transportation plan.
Sure, everything we have to date, we'll share
Okay.
that for you.
All right.
So do you have the draft, or is it still just the website?
Nah, just the website.
Okay, yeah, so I do have that. I have the flood
Mhm.
information that's been put together to date. And then I have a couple of other plans that Joe sent over to me. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but I can look through them.
I shared with her the Baldwin Street plans that were,
Oh, right, the ones that didn't actually
Okay.
go
All
forward.
right.
Yeah, oops. So I don't know, since I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, oh yeah, here it is, bring it up.
if she's seen the Route 50 and the corridor traffic plans that we had.
Okay,
Yeah, so the Route 50 plans, the McLaughlin Run flood plan, your ordinances, zoning, et cetera, those are very important as well. Active transportation plan, I have that information that's available to date. The Baldwin Street plan, I also have.
okay.
Well, Joe, you're gonna make me a copy of that one.
All right.
I think I have it in my office. If you're staying tonight, I can give it to you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions? Melissa, any questions?
No, I'm good at the moment, thanks.
Okay, all right. All right.
All right, so we're excited to get started. Looking forward to working with all of you.
Oh, one other question, because since spring and summer and fall are usually when the social activities
Yes.
start in Bridgeville, do we need to take into consideration that we should be providing our residents information?
Yes, yeah, that's a good point, something that I forgot to bring up. Existing events, we would like to piggyback on existing events. If there are festivals, if there are community events that happen in Bridgeville, you know, it's really hard to get people, first of all, to participate in a comprehensive plan. They don't always understand what that is. And then everybody's busy, so when you're asking them to come out to another meeting or event, you know, it's so much easier if there's something already planned that people are coming to. At least for us to have some information there to share with those
Get your
attendees. Mhm.
We'll get you a booth at our virtual day on the avenue.
Mhm. Yes, we've done that a lot.
Or the bar crawl.
Yeah, March 12th, we do March
I like
12th.
that one, we don't participate
Yeah,
in
there you
that.
go.
March 12th.
March 12th.
March 12th, oh.
Walking tour of Bridgeville.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, we've done booths, for community days in Waynesburg and Bethel Park. Like a lot of our previous plans, we've had information, so thank you, that's a good point.
Okay,
We definitely want to take advantage. We might not be able to attend everything,
right.
but we can
Well,
at least have information,
correct. And
or,
yeah,
and work with whoever is going to be there from the borough.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. All right. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you, Brandy, very much.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking.
Definitely. We'll be talking a lot. You might get sick of me over the next year.
All right, well, next up is John Danvers.
Yeah, I'll come up here so everybody can see.
Okay, he's the planner for the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development.
Yeah, it's great to be here tonight. My name is John Danvers. I'm a planner with the Department of Community and Economic Development. As Brandy touched on, just kind of building off of what she said, obviously it's a very exciting time for Bridgeville. You know, you're laying the vision, the future for this community. You know, trying to make it a great place for people to come and live and work and raise their families. What I just want to touch on really quick is that my role as a planner is to help. And I know one of the concerns of the Planning Commission was, you know, once we have this comprehensive plan, you don't want it to just sit on the shelf. And so what I'm here to do is to try and make sure that that doesn't happen once you have the comprehensive plan. So the biggest thing in doing that is making sure that we can secure funding for any sort of recommendations that are made in the plan. Obviously, we don't know what's going to be in the plan yet, 100%. But for example, if there was any sort of you know, shared services recommendation, our municipal assistance program can help secure funding through that. More recently, $140 million through the Pennsylvania Gaming Commission funding just came up for that. So
How much?
140 million. Yeah,
Do we have to have a casino for that, or does it come from?
No, it's funny. It's a lot of people are concerned. Oh, it's only going to go to like, you know, Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or somewhere with you know, gaming. It's for all communities. It does have to go through the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Finance Association, which means it's pending legislative approval. Any requests are made, but you know, we're here to help, you know, try and get that funding as well as with your legislators. So I'll give Joe my information as well, just so he can distribute it to everybody. You know, if they have any questions, reach out to myself or Nick, who's the other planner in this region. But yeah, so you know, just to make sure that you know this comprehensive plan doesn't sit on the shelf. You know, any sort of other planning. You know, questions that you might have that are ancillary to the comprehensive program. We're just here So does anybody have any questions about DCED or what we do?
I do have one, how can you, in the future, after we get done with this whole process, remind me again how we can make sure that this project or this thing is looked at in the future, in say 5, 10 years? I mean, we went through it year 14, I think, right? And it was like almost painful.
Well, I'll answer real
Yeah,
quick
sure.
and then we
Yeah.
can build on that if you want. What I talked about with the implementation team, it's really important that we have folks that are identified as part of our process. A lot of times, like I said, it's the planning commission, that they are charged with looking at the plan every quarter, maybe twice a year, if they can't do it every quarter, and then preparing that annual report, so that it's not forgotten, and it's not 15 years before you look at it again. It's being at least looked at annually, hopefully even more than that. That I think is very important.
Okay.
I guess I would like to see in the future, once the plan is done, that we have it on as an agenda item on,
Right,
you know,
right.
3 times a year,
Yes,
4
yeah,
times
for
a year.
sure. Mhm.
You know, and I'm sure that there's gonna be the projects and stuff. You know, there's a lot of stuff that came through on the old plan that just kind of sat there
Right.
because of
You know.
lack of implementation or
Right.
lack of funding, that type of thing, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and, you know, as Brandon said, you know, making sure that you're looking at the plan, you know, as often as you can helps. And once those recommendations are in the plan, you know, again, that's where we can come into play and help, whether it's getting funding through DCED, or through other state agencies. I know it was also mentioned, you know, with PennDOT. You know, if you come with that comprehensive plan, you can show them that, you know, this is exactly what we want. That helps a lot in building your case, as opposed to, well, you know, the other day, you know, this happened and we're looking for funding now, right? So, yeah, we're just a resource here. You know, we're always here to help, happy to reach out and help. We have, you know, a couple planners in the Western region. We have a local government policy specialist as well. So, again, I'll give Joe my information. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Good question. We get the comprehensive plan, 2 years down the line, we're going through it. We see there's something that we think that we can take on, but it's a matter of building an implementation plan to help carry it out. Is that something you guys can help us with?
Yeah, certainly, you know, if that's something that comes up down the line, you know, we can, you know, we'd be more than happy to look at that plan with you and see, you know, if this is something we can help with, what we can help secure funding for if necessary. So, yeah, we'd be more than happy as always to, you know, to help you guys out with that.
So when you say secure funding, you're assisting in writing the grants, or you're just saying, hey, here's a grant for this, here's a grant for that? You're just directing us in the right direction? I guess I'm trying to understand what your role is with the municipality.
Right, so we help in any sort of funding, whether there's funding available through the different state agencies. So we're through DCED, there's a pot of money from us. There's also pots of money, as I had mentioned before, the Pennsylvania Gaming Commission just made $140 million available. We can help secure that. Also, I mean, that needs to go through legislative approval as well. But yeah, I mean, any sort of funding, we can help write grants for things. You know, we have a whole team available to help with that kind of stuff, so.
And that's
I think
really important.
Yeah,
for
that's how we
Soldier.
got here tonight,
Yeah.
was, we prioritized that we wanted to do this comp project. We reached out to Nick at his office to say, hey, this is a priority. We went to all our neighbors. We lack the funding, can you help us? And, well, we waited for a year to line things up for us. That's how this all went out.
But having folks to help you with the grant applications is so important, because a lot of times, again, people are busy and also just don't have the technical resources to put together a good grant package. So having these resources at the state is very helpful for communities.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you something, Nick. With the road network like that leading to Bridgeville, I'm assuming that if the comprehensive plan to solve the traffic congestion problem is extensive enough, it will be a benefit to not only Bridgeville, but all of the communities surrounding Bridgeville, which sort of raises it to a level of something the county would be interested in terms of economically developing the entire area.
Yeah, it certainly could be. I think the biggest thing right now is, getting the comprehensive plan done and seeing what the findings are. And if, there's anything in there that, again, that we can assist with, there's a benefit to the larger community here, not just Bridgeville, but surrounding municipalities. That's always an excellent point to examine.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Well, now you can make your trip back home. Watch out for those deer.
Yeah, thank you. I can just, I can stay. That's fine.
Well, I mean, if you want to, that's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Talk flooding.
Where do you live?
Venango County.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions before we move on to old business? All right, so I asked Joe to give a idea to the new members of the planning committee as to where we sit right now in the McLaughlin Run flood control project. So,
Did you want to touch on the active transportation?
oh, crap, yeah, sorry. Okay, active transportation plan. So, we had a meeting, a public meeting on February 8th for the residents. There were quite a few newer residents, new people there as opposed to the first meeting. The group is making modest revisions to the plan based upon the input from the public meeting. They will be working on cost estimates to prioritize the projects. A full draft plan, I underline draft plan, should be presented at the end of March. And then the full committee will receive a copy for our review, and then we'll present it to the council for their review. All right, and that's about it for the active transportation plan.
And the website has the updates on it.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think for those who didn't see it before the 8th meeting,
Okay,
it tells a nice story on how we got here, where we're at, what was the input from the community, and what are the ideas.
okay,
So,
all right,
encourage people to visit the website.
all right. And are we going to do the same thing with comprehensive plan as we did with the active transportation plan?
That's my hope. If you go on the borough website, there's a couple of tags across the top.
Okay,
And one says community, and you drop down under community, and one of the links is active transportation plan. It's our hope to just put comprehensive plan.
okay, good.
Can we put it, make that link or make that information more upfront on the webpage so that people don't have to search for it as much? I'm just thinking that
I think if we had an update, once it comes time that, before we, there's like, if you look on the website, there's announcement sections,
Yeah.
and then there's like news at the bottom. I think once it comes time that we're going to come here with a draft plan, and then, hey, here's our draft plan, so the citizens can review it, that's easily something that we could make.
yeah, but I'm
Yes.
with the comprehensive plan, as we proceed down the line, is there some place that, maybe in the news section of the
I think
website?
Maybe just a suggestion would be, we do have the comp plan page, and then if there is a developing story, event or something, that could be right on the homepage.
Yeah.
And that could be easily done.
Yeah.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that.
All right, you ready?
Sure. Flood plan, in your packet was a couple things regarding the flood plan. This was a big issue and a big effort that we vetted last year. The flood plan is broken into four phases, 4 options. Last year, the first phase, just to keep it simple, is all of the McLaughlin Run watershed. So all the streams in town, it's essentially focused on McLaughlin Run. Phase 1 is from the back channel, so Old Chartiers Creek, up to the culverts behind Gary Delight. And the Planning Commission vetted this last year, and in your packets, and we even posted on the website, is the slides from the plan. The slides make it easier to follow and digest. Option 1 was vetted by Planning Commission last August. We had public input here at Planning Commission and Council. Planning Commission recommended to Council that Phase 1 be implemented. Phase 1 is about $5.6 million, and includes the construction of essentially a levee from the back channel to Dairy Delight, and replaces the double barrel culverts behind the Dairy Delight. Under Commercial Street is 2 culverts, so essentially 2 little tunnels. Under significant rains, debris gets caught there, it slows down water velocity, and the idea is make that just one bridge so the water can go through and it doesn't slow anything down. So that phase has been, council gave me the green light to start applying for grant funds to do that project. To date, we've applied for 3 funding sources, waiting for a determination. One, we went to PEMA for federal assistance that would fund, if it's funded, 75% of the project. The same project, we submitted an application to what John was talking about, the local share grant. We submitted an application to them asking for $1 million. And then in concert with what Mr. Fuller was saying tonight about, hey, do we ever have to say, hey, this project's consistent with our plans? I had the chairperson tonight sign a letter saying that this project is consistent with our plans and has been approved by the planning agency, seeking flood mitigation money through the Commonwealth Financing Agency. So our hope is that, we know this is going to take a number of years to get the money lined up, but we're being very diligent in seeking funding. So that's where we are with phase 1. Essentially, there's a number of options as you go up the watershed, but the methodology behind it is essentially the same, a levee system and pumps. Where it comes back to Planning Commission is now that if you have an understanding of, hey, this is how phase 1 would work, and you could see how this would go up the channel, is where do we take it from here? Because the options where you got in relationship to Baldwin Street and up McLaughlin Run had a number of different options, and they were unique, and some suggested, let's just get rid of everything on the left side of Baldwin Street and make it a park. One was, let's just go to Lovey the way it is and just move on. Another option was, let's get rid of the Baldwin Street Bridge and make it a roundabout, just to get rid of that obstruction. So where we left it off last year was, hey, these are all big pictures that really will have an effect on the future of our community and people's property, livelihood, and futures. We need to give this more thought. So while phase 1 is being vetted and it's going to take a number of years, we made the suggestion is that in 2022, we start vetting phase 2. And what do you see? Is this totally wrong, or what do we got to do with it? Well, a number of things are now starting to line up. We're being a lot of, I think we're getting a lot of attention with, we're putting our plans to paper and our money where our mouth is, where a lot of things are starting to line up now. The county is moving ahead with replacing the Bower Hill Road Bridge, and that has also been a big source of flooding where the center pier catches all the debris, and it's kind of been talked about in these flood plans. So that's coming to fruition. But while that comes into fruition, there's a lot of things like we were talking tonight about traffic. Maybe we need to improve the corridor, and how do we work in concert with the county so that that new bridge is maybe aligned better, or how does it go to improve the road networks? Because you'll see on some of the options, one of the options is, hey, our section of Bower Hill Road, when I say our section, Bower Hill Road is a county road, essentially from Cochran Road in Mount Lebanon to McLaughlin Run in Bridgeville, and then from McLaughlin Run to the Pike, it's a borough road. So some of our plans say the borough section of McLaughlin Run, the road base is just inadequate, and maybe we should just get rid of it and we send all the traffic to Baldwin Street. So that was another thing that's talked about in these plans. So the one plan that suggested, I may be getting confused, but the one I think that suggested like a parklet was the one that said maybe we widen the water channel and we send all the traffic to Bower Hill Road, have 2 roundabouts on either side. So there's really a lot of out-of-the-box and unique thinking going on here. It's just now we need to give it some more thought and see where we go from
So
here.
with that said, I mean, before we start figuring out what we want for the next phase, you know, I know we're gonna sit down with, it's a county bridge, right?
Mhm.
So we're gonna sit down with the county to find out what, they're gonna ask us what we would like to see. kind of
Correct.
discuss. So-
Yes, we gotta see how we can, keep the projects moving forward
Yeah,
without,
'cause whatever they do there, we want to make sure we don't put something in there that doesn't
work with ours.
work with what we want to do.
Correct.
Have we laid out any decision criteria?
No. That's what makes it unique, because each approach had really, we're at an intersection looking at all these different effects. Some are like seriously taking businesses that are landmarks in our community out of here.
Right, and I think that and in here somewhere is a discussion as to how many houses would be, based upon which option we go to, how many houses will be destroyed.
Yes,
All
you'll
right?
see how many are
So-
saved and how many, when they say saved, the plan essentially is designed to prevent the 100-year flood in the borough and minimize the effect of the 500-year flood.
That was my question, actually. Did we address that? Because I know when I brought that up to our engineer, that right now everything was set up for 150 years, and I asked him to, give us plans for 500 years. Because our rain tabulations recently have been, quite honest, astronomical compared to what they have been in the past 25 years. To the point where global warming is taking over, where our whole temperature worldwide is 1.1 degree higher on average. That's a number that's staggering. So I do remember asking our Kevin Britt at one of the meetings here, could we readdress and look at what would it take to be prepared for those 500-year floods? Because realistically, we're not Chartiers Valley for any reason. This is a valley that, and we have multiple watersheds that convene into us. We need to be prepared that getting ready for a 150-year flood as opposed to the 100-year ones that we've supposedly been having. We've had, 10 100-year floods in the last 15 years? That's not mathematically sound. We need to do better. So I know I brought that up previously, I just didn't know if he's readdressed that at all.
No,
Any plans?
it has. When we submitted the PEMA application, we met with PEMA officials and explained that phase 1 is designed, I wish I had the exact number, but it is a number of feet over the 100 years, so that it's designed to eliminate the 100 and minimize the extent to 500. So it is designed over the 100 at a number, a certain foot, but I don't know that precise number.
Right, no, I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, but no, that was addressed. And that was an exact question from FEMA, was that, hey, climate's getting worse,
Right.
you need to be cognizant of that. So that was an exact conversation.
Awesome, I appreciate that, thank you.
The other thing is that option 1, which is what we approved in planning, and council approved also, is basically the groundwork or the foundation for everything else that follows. All right, so in order to make the other options successful, we had to do option 1 in order to make that successful.
I guess the question I'm asking is, success is based on what decision criteria?
Correct.
What does success look like?
Right.
And if we haven't done that, it might be useful to do that to help decide as you go through all these multiple ways of achieving.
Yeah, I think it's a discussion for you guys, because do I define success as, I just don't want another flood? Or do I define success that maybe that these properties serve a better purpose being as this plan? Or do I see it as protecting these businesses? Like, that's.
Well, I'm not, if I was pointing to you, I didn't mean like you're.
But no, that's
I'm just-
that's really discussion. That's
I mean,
why
Right,
that's
right.
kicked it now.
That's what we need to look at.
I think that again, coming late to the party.
Right.
Only know a little bit, but it just seems to me that if we have these, we're talking 100-year stuff, 200-year stuff, 500-year stuff, we ought to be saying, well, what's important to us as we sit here right now? Do we worry about the guys 500 years from now in Bridgeville, or do we worry about the guys 5 years from now in Bridgeville? And what do we care about? Do we want to just let it flood because that's better for that to flood than for this to flood? It just seems to me that would be a very useful discussion to have, is to determine what we consider to be the most important, with the elements of these options and plans. I mean, you can, I know that you know that you can plan what they want.
Next month.
Pardon?
You can put that on the agenda for next month.
You know, like, if history's any indication on where this is gonna go, the Baldwin Street plan, I honestly thought was a very good exercise and a good plan.
Right.
I think the problem with the Baldwin Street plan, speaking as a former planning commission member, we didn't really get the involvement of the folks on Baldwin Street.
So when we,
And then when it went bad with the worst flood ever, people looked at that plan to solve all the world's problems, and we're sitting up there like deer in the headlight because we didn't talk to the people on Baldwin Street, and that was a failure. And maybe that's something we learned from, and that's just me being
well,
very
that's
candid.
like
about
when we talked, when you mentioned stakeholders.
I think it's
You know,
smart.
and we say we have a focus group.
Right.
I have it written down, and that's a key focus group. And moving forward, because whatever we do here, we need to get the input of the people down there.
Well, that's part of the decision criteria, you know,
Right.
who are your stakeholders that you're gonna say, okay, we're not gonna sit up here on the mountain and make these calls.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, what's the most important thing to do? Bring a stakeholder in, see what kind of money is out there? I mean, I don't know, but I'm thinking there can't be more than half a dozen really crucial issues
Yeah.
that need to be in writing, prioritized preferably, that this is how we're gonna make this decision, because otherwise, I was so proud of myself for having read from front to back the Borough of Bridgeville ordinance. And then 2 days later, I got this, and then 2 days later, I got this, and I'm thinking, damn. So like, what's really, really super important? And not that I can't read it all, because I can, but it's like, what's really, really super important out of all this stuff? What's the most critical stuff? What's the most important stuff? What are our decision criteria as we try to decide? I mean, there's a part of me that I frankly, I know that Joe's job involves writing grants, but I don't know that Joe's job 24/7 is writing grants. I mean, what are we putting numbers to these things and saying, how far out there is this? Is this like La La Land, or is this something that makes sense with, I mean, I'm not suggesting we have to raise taxes, but do we have to look at stuff like revenue from taxation? And I don't know if the planning commission even talks about that. I don't even know if that's on our plate, but I get concerned sometime about circular and ongoing conversations about things that just never seem to resolve themselves.
Well, that's, you know, that's been part of the issue, but, you know, you ask a lot of good questions. And I think that there's some discussion that needs to be had amongst this group, and then I think we need to, like you said, draw up some guidelines for decision-making. And then we have some community meetings. Bring in people that are gonna be impacted by these decisions and just kind of lay out, here's some of the options that we're thinking about. We need some feedback from you to say, you know, this is a good plan, or this is a bad plan, or, you know, we're losing an awful lot of economic development businesses on this plan, maybe we stick with this plan. You know, I think that's kind of the approach that we gotta take, and it's not gonna be something that happens tonight, tomorrow, next month. It's gonna be, you know, a year-long process.
And here's a question, like Brandon's here. Like, we know where option one is going, and that's gonna take time. And option two is, if we know option one is at the quickest 5 years.
Right.
We know this is down the pipe.
Exactly.
And do we somehow, and we know this is an implementable plan. You know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, like the top 3 things facing Bridgeville: economic development, traffic, and flooding. Like, how do we do this so that it's all the same, so we're not double work?
Right.
Yeah, so, in order for me to understand what all is happening, it's important that I get those existing documents and the updates from you in terms of what's happening with those. So we will be incorporating recommendations as appropriate from those plans. So we're not going to reinvent the wheel in terms of addressing flooding. in your borough because you're doing that through this flood study. But that information is going to be included in our comprehensive plan so that there's further support as you start seeking additional funding for future phases. So yes, that, in the active transportation plan, same thing. It will be done in a month or two. So those recommendations will be referenced in the comp plan so that we're consistent with what's being developed with other planning processes happening.
Yes and no. Like, it's so unique that I think a lot of the flood issues are traffic issues, and the traffic issues are economic development issues, like,
It's all combined.
they're all the same.
Yeah,
But like, how do we do it so that, like, a bunch of novices aren't doing it, you're the professional that has the staff, how do we do it so that we can get, like, we need help taking these to the next level? Is that something we could do with your staff and what we're doing this year, or is this something that we need to do separately?
So let me understand, this flood study that's, the firm, the engineering firm that prepared that for you, are they done?
This is the borough engineer did this.
Oh, the borough engineer did?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So it really wasn't,
You didn't hire a firm?
no,
Okay, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
thought you hired a firm.
no, the borough engineer did.
So, we have civil engineers on staff, so we can involve them, as we're moving forward, in the process, in terms of looking at what are the next steps, give them that plan that was done, and involve them in the process. Because like you said, flooding, traffic, economic, you kind of know your top issues. So if you need help fleshing out how to move forward with that plan, for sure, that would be part of our process. I thought you had another firm on.
No.
So I was confused about that. But yeah, for sure. That's a major issue that comes out of the borough, and I mean, seriously, we all know that it's going to be one.
Yeah.
That'll be part of our process, and we'll bring our engineers in to look at it.
So you're saying phase one, let's just estimate 5 years, okay? So if we were to take 2 years to look at phase two, then at what point do you think that we would get the money? What's the timeline for that project? 10
You
years,
gotta have
15?
shovels in the ground to prove yourself before you start going up the thing.
Yeah, as I
So,
said, we
5 to 8?
Matthew,
Really?
what's the schedule for the bridge?
Yeah, that's it.
26.
So we gotta know which direction we wanna go before they start designing a bridge.
So they're designing now.
That's what I'm saying, so we gotta figure out we gotta figure out, so we gotta do like a stakeholder meeting at Baldwin Street, like soon.
Well, Baldwin Street and the end of McLaughlin Run, that kind of, from PJ's down.
So that little piece has to be accelerated.
Yeah, but I think what I'm getting at is that, like, it's these questions of what's our priorities
Oh,
here
no, I agree.
is kind of like what comes out of the comp plan.
Right.
Yeah, those are
Oh,
the
I agree.
discussions as,
Yeah.
But I agree with that, but you can't sit there and have them build a, $5 million bridge
Yeah.
when that's, it's like a linchpin of your project. And if they're gonna, Connie comes in and says, hey, we'll build a bridge, and then after we build a bridge, we're like, okay, kind of stuck with this bridge now.
Right.
Otherwise, they're just gonna replace that bridge, all they're gonna do is take out the center beam, and be like, here,
That's
this,
exactly right.
that's all they're gonna do, they're gonna replace the bridge, take out the center beam, say, there, that's what you wanted, right? No more bulkhead where your trees would get
But
caught.
that's where it is, that's what we went with.
I know exactly what I'm saying. And just like the north end, they were gonna fix it, we kind of got together and said, hey, look, we wanna see, this is what we envisioned. They said, all right, well, design it, come back to us and let's work together. We gotta do that same thing over here, but we gotta figure out what we want.
You have to do that on every aspect of your comprehensive plan. Don't wait, you want the whole plan, and then
Well, yeah,
step by
well,
step.
the comprehensive plans for stuff we wanna do in 5 or 10, 20 years down the road.
Not necessarily.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is those big projects, that's what we're gonna lay out. This, I'm talking about, this is an immediate thing that
if there's
we
something
have
that
to jump
needs to
on.
be accelerated, then yeah, you want to, because the comp plan is a year-long process, so we're not going to be done with it in a month or two.
Right.
if there is something that you need to get started on, perhaps, you know, a meeting with the residents or whatever needs to happen outside of the comprehensive plan before we, you know, get started. If that needs to happen now, I don't know if it can wait a few months. I assume it can if the bridge isn't scheduled until, what'd you say?
26.
There is some time, I mean, but, I mean, you don't have to do it next week, I guess is my point. But it can be something that we accelerate as part of the comprehensive plan. But if a meeting needs to happen before we get involved, then you just let us know what happens as part of that meeting. But as part of our process, we can accelerate that, that topic.
Has any engineer looked at that bridge and given us any ideas? As to our engineers, to be, you know, to look at the bridge, Bower Hill Bridge, and say, you know, we could realign it to make traffic flow easier, or,
No, everything has been focused on flooding. And so you had engineers look at it for flooding, that's why you have that ramp down there now.
right.
And we went to them and said, hey, this thing is flooding our town, get rid of it.
For the PennDOT meeting that's gonna occur.
Nothing, no, because that's been rather new.
Right.
The issue has been flooding.
Okay. Bob, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll say what I have to say in 1 minute. Nick,
No, you won't.
Nick is correct. The flooding's gonna get worse. There's McLaughlin Road Creek has a 7 square mile watershed area, and the reason it's flooding Ridgeville now is because that area was forest covered. You're talking about Upper St. Clair and Buffalo Park. Now, the whole 80% of that land's covered with asphalt and parking lots and shopping centers, and all the water's coming to Bridgeville. So I think Nick is right. You want your flood solution plan to anticipate this,
Right.
it's gonna get worse.
Wait, yeah, you don't build something for
Yeah.
your problem you have today.
It's gonna get worse.
Just like we build a bridge, we're not gonna build it for the traffic we have now, we're gonna build it for the traffic that can handle it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
I think go back to the floodplain, like if we had to just like boil it down, like, first one, like phase 1, just to understand, is there any questions on,
No.
let the new folks,
No.
so that's good. The next phase 2, I think the best thing is like, we're just getting conversation going, like how do you want to address moving this forward as an agenda item? Do you want to think, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we kick around, how we want to talk about, we need to have our ducks in a row before the holiday.
Yes,
Right.
yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
So what are those priorities? That's what we need to start thinking about.
And
And it's just how we deliver it and how we explain this, and then let citizens give us their feedback. And then-
Absolutely.
right,
And
right.
that can,
We
we
can
can
reach
follow
out.
up what you're doing. Right?
And reach out personally to the, you know,
Yeah.
you have apartment owners, you have homeowners, you know, I mean, and they're, each one's gonna have a different, you know, some of these people aren't gonna care, they're like, you know, we already, it's, yeah.
I think that what we should do is further discuss a little bit what Bitsy had to say, and then get those ducks in the row, and then see who wants to be involved on Baldwin Street. Because I don't even know, do we have any idea how many renters are down there versus people that rent, people that own but rent?
It's mixed, but
Yeah.
I think look, this is 55 pages.
Right.
We need to boil this down to 2.
Correct.
That you could then, hey,
Exactly.
this is what I wanna, this is what we think your future looks like.
Yeah.
It's really it.
Yeah, you don't need to put flood charts, it's not.
Right.
You know, I took and pulled that apart and just copied the phase 2 sections out of all the options.
Because here's the thing, you show them, you know, that's the other, you show somebody a map, the first thing they're gonna do is like, where do I live and how does it affect my piece of property? And that's huge, I mean, because there's 1 or 2 things gonna happen, they're gonna say, oh, I don't wanna move, and this is gonna wipe me out, or, oh, good, they're gonna take my property and I'm gonna be able to leave, just like some of the other people that had properties in FEMA said, hey, we'll buy them, you know.
And then I think it's just the way, if we just take the time to deliver this in a manner that, one, people feel that it's real,
Right.
and that it actually is gonna, it's their future, it's gonna work.
Right.
Because like, going back to like, if any indication what we learned from the past, this is what we learned from the Baldwin Street plan, and what we learned from, what we're going through now with like the FEMA buyouts. There could have been a lot more properties in there that just didn't think it would ever happen. Now it came to light, everyone wants to do it.
We had a lot
And
of
it's
people-
like, and then they're calling and say, oh, I didn't think it was gonna happen. I thought it was just,
And then, but they might look at this project and say, oh, yeah, this is now,
Right.
this is my opportunity.
I changed my mind.
so, it's just, I think it's just the way we communicate it, you know?
Okay.
Because it can work.
Okay.
And I just think if we just take the extra time to put a nice package in that can make for a good meeting, that actually get a result out of it, it builds on the comp plan, and then it takes us for the next year.
And there's people down there that they know what we're doing, and there's some people
Right.
that they don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we need to, like I said, we have options, or, you know, for these, for that phase. We need to basically simplify, have a nice map that shows us, they can go and look and see, you know, kind of like we do with the active transportation, and they can, and just get their input, you know, and drive it that and steer it that way.
Yeah, spend some time doing the educational part up front with this.
I mean, there's all these people, you know, you go to the Canine Club, you know, see people, you know, different businesses, and
Yeah.
the Bruce's,
The Alice Club.
the Alice Club, Towing Club, you know, so.
And then I think, the words in your mouth, the whole idea was to get this on the agenda so that this is something that we flush through this year.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So like really this year's finishing up active transportation plan, getting moving on the comp plan, and then taking phase 2 flood plan. Those are really our priorities. that I
Right.
know.
Right, no, that's about it. So I think we have enough work, so. All right, so you need more of an agenda, or do you need more of a timeline than that, or
I think we
you
need-
mull it over a little bit?
Yeah, and then we come down to like flush out,
Okay,
like Betsy's saying, like, what's the objective? What do we want to see? It's not what we want to see, but what's the community want to see?
right.
And we really need to get them to the table. And it's just, how do we deliver that so that we can get them to the table, so that, like last time they came in with pitchforks,
Yeah,
that we don't want that.
You want to make them part of the solution.
Yeah.
So they weren't a part of
You
it at all?
give,
or-
no, it was.
No.
Just no one comes to meetings.
Yeah.
That's what it
And
was.
so you have a meeting, you know, everybody knows we have a meeting.
Yeah,
But, you know, unless, you know, if you have a flood, after the flood, the place is filled.
That's what
'Cause-
happened, the timing was awful.
Oh, yeah, it was right through the flood, too. So, I mean, but you have to engage them, you have to make them feel like
Right.
they're part of the
Right.
solution.
Yeah.
You know, and you get them to buy in, and it just steamrolls into what we're doing with the comprehensive plan. They're gonna get excited about that. Hey, we should do this and that, so.
I hate to, can we, no, never mind, I'll talk to you separately about that, my idea, so, okay. All right,
We good?
It's basically just, tonight was to just get the gears moving, so that this is gonna be a regular agenda item, and what do we do to get moving?
okay.
Sounds good.
Melissa, you have any questions?
I will have questions. I'm trying to formulate the questions, I think.
Okay, all right. We'll be here.
Well, not here.
Yeah, I hope not.
All right,
My question, are we off that and on?
no, not yet, not yet.
Just checking, I didn't know if that was a question that I had.
No, and how long do you think your little,
2 minutes, I just
Okay.
want to ask a
All right.
question.
any other comments, questions, concerns that we have for Brandy or the person from Benango? John? Okay, all right, so, any other, Bob, did you want to say something in 2
No,
minutes?
you guys are on the right track.
Okay.
Just, you're full steam ahead and develop your plan and then implement step by step. Don't allow 4 and 5 years between the phases.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Congratulations.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Betsy.
Well, again, part of this is just me saying, all right, awesome, I read through this whole freaking thing. But I think basically I had two things that came out of reading through all of those things. And the first one was, it just seems to me, there's an awful lot of rules in here, and I guess my first question is how serious do we get about making sure that people follow all of the rules that are in here? Because there's a whole boatload of them, like that many. Do we, if it's...
Which rules are you talking about? Like,
Oh,
like-
honey, the
Ordinances.
whole,
The ordinance.
anything and everything.
Well, I can tell you that, you know, Bridgeville, I think, is pretty serious about having people follow the rules. That's why they hired Joe, to the point where it's, you know, people are starting to talk about it. So, yes, I think Bridgeville's pretty serious about that people follow the rules.
Okay.
We have, the realization is here in Bridgeville, that you have a group, an older population that may not always agree with those ordinances. So,
Taking their suggestions.
correct.
Well, I mean, there's stuff in there ranging all from the beginning, about all this stuff about the nudity and escort services. So I'm saying, wow, did we have a problem with nudity and escort services? And did we fix it with our?
Have you seen any nudity?
We're voting that into the gambling that
Have you seen it? So weird.
Yeah, can we do something like that?
Betsy, I will tell you one, like, so, you know, a couple, years ago, we had two neighbors who would have a dispute over stuff in front of each other's houses. And they would come into a council meeting, they'd yell at each other and say, you know, you're not calling this out on him, and you're calling this out on me. And then that other person would come to the next council meeting with pictures saying, you're yelling at me for this, but I see this, and this as I walk around Bridgeville. So there is, you know, I think, Joe, you're doing a pretty good job of going around and checking things and trying to make sure that those ordinances are being followed. And, you know, some people get upset about it, and they're like, why is he doing this? Never did it before, but there is a rule book.
Right.
And, you know, you should be held accountable. You know, if you're taking care of your, you know, if you have a sign on your building and it's zoned properly, and somebody hangs up a tarp with, you know, it's not supposed to be that way, then they should be doing the same, following the same set of rules.
Okay, so when we have, like, on main drags, we have buildings that theoretically have something to do with cars. And right on the main drag are 15 cars in an incredibly advanced state of disrepair, which my understanding is that their excuse is, well, I use that for parts. Pardon me, but my Aunt Fanny, you use that for parts. That doesn't have a part left in it, let alone that you use it for parts, which is because it's 50 years old. But there's a number of those kinds of places, and I guess is it that do we go through a process that says, or signage, the famous signage out on the sidewalk? Do we go through a process that says, and I also know, I do understand that maybe some of this is, well, it was a pandemic and we didn't want to make life worse for people by saying, yeah, well, okay, it's a pandemic, but I don't care, you still have to do this. But we're sort of maybe moving beyond that now, so.
Well, just because, if you see something like that, just because it's still there, does not mean it hasn't been addressed. I know, I know for a fact, like, there's a house on our street, and it's always been an issue with whether it's grass or whatever, you know, falling down. And I know they've been cited, fined. You know, you can only do so much before, you know, they get sent in front of the magistrate. So you might see something like that and go, wow, why is nothing being done? But behind the scenes, stuff is being
The
done.
process takes time.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the process to address, especially code enforcement, is very lengthy.
Okay, more than 2 years?
It can,
Yeah.
if it goes to the magistrate level, it can take years.
Yeah.
So you have those rules, but they're not quick fixes, because people have property rights and people have other rights, and there's a process that has to be followed.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm sure if we have a particular question about a certain
Oh,
property,
I
I'm
got,
sure you ask
but
Joe,
I'm
you
not
know.
gonna sit and then make everybody listen to them one by one by one. So, but yeah, there's a bunch of them out there.
There's a person in the borough called the zoning officer, sitting right in front of you. He's the one that,
I talk to him all the time. It's not that I want to say, Joe, you need to be making this happen. What I want to know the folks in this room who develop these and make these decisions, how serious are we about it? If we put it in here, how serious are we about it? Are we serious as a heart attack, or just it looked good because it's in some kind of standard operating manual thing? You know, and I just, I have to tell you, I frankly am not sure that, I don't want to say that I don't care. It's not that I don't care, but it's like we didn't move to Bridgeville because we thought somehow we were in Upper St. Clair. That we did not want to live in Upper St. Clair. We specifically chose to live in this community because it feels more like a small city, which is what we thought was really cool about it. So I'm not saying that we need to get rid of the Thai massage place over on, whatever the heck the name of that street is over there. I'm not saying that you gotta kick that guy's, that business that has those 1,500 cars that have been right in front of his business for as long as we've lived here, that I walk by 12 times a week. I'm just saying, I would like to understand the degree to which Bridgeville says we are going to enforce these laws, and this is how long we are going to give you, or not. And it's gonna, which is fine, I just would like to know. I think it would be important, if we're going to write all of these rules and regulations, either we need to have some kind of time frame for which those rules and regulations are addressed, or we should take the frickin' things out of the rules and regulations. It's
Joe,
just-
is your zoning report online?
Yes.
You can, if you look at the past 12 months of his zoning enforcement report, you will see a lot of things that have been identified and initiated in
Okay.
terms of enforcement. Can you go, is it back a year? The whole,
since he started.
I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I will.
Yes?
I think you guys are doing a great job. Thank you. I like that open. But I do tend to agree there, it's a very extensive zoning ordinance. There are some very dated things. There are some things that we might need to address.
And that can be a priority item of the comprehensive plan too. A lot of times, one of the projects that comes out of a comprehensive plan is to update your zoning. So as part of this process, we can look at your ordinance and identify some red flags, some things that we think could be updated or changed. And then the borough can undertake an amendment or a full zoning ordinance update after.
Would you identify specific zoning issues, or
We
just?
can. I mean, we're not going to, this process won't allow us to go through page by page and, mark it up, but we can generally look through and flag some items, and if we hear things through the public process or through our various meetings that we're having, this is a variance request that we're receiving almost every month, so we need to address this so that we don't have all these variances. We perhaps need to change the ordinance, especially if you're granting them. Things like that we can do. We can't do a full zoning audit as part of this process, but we can definitely identify some red flags. And then even if you don't do a full zoning update after this process, you should at least look at the ordinance and perhaps do some amendments to make sure it's consistent with the comprehensive plan.
So it's just an example, you're saying, well, why don't we have this in there, why don't we just take it out, nobody's following it? So, was it about a year ago, the great chicken debate in Bridgeville? So there's an ordinance in Bridgeville, you're not allowed to have chickens, So we looked at it, and they came to the planning commission, and, there was definitely some reasons why it'd be kind of cool to have people allowed to have chickens, and there are people in Bridgeville who have chickens. And it's in our zoning or ordinance, you're not allowed to have chickens. But there's some people that have it, nobody's ever complained, nobody said anything. And it came to the planning commission and where we looked at it and we decided to leave it in there because it's a tool in case there is a problem. You can say, look, it's in the rule, you have 12 chickens running around and it's, matter of fact, there was a, back in the day where you live, somebody let a rooster loose in Greenwood Place and spent the summer in Greenwood Place, waking up everybody at 4 o'clock in the morning. So there's rules, so, but, if somebody has 2 chickens in their backyard, they're getting eggs and probably nobody's saying anything.
Well, this is not targeted at Joe.
Right.
Joe is doing an absolutely awesome job. I'm just saying that if he's gotta have some juice to
Right,
make
oh,
these
absolutely.
things. And he's gotta know that everybody here and there has his back.
Absolutely.
When he proceeds to enforce
Yep.
whatever the thing might be that he's enforcing.
All right, Bob, one last comment.
One
and that's-
last comment. You're talking about zoning. Bridgeville is a community that's only 1 mile square. We need buildings to generate tax revenues to keep the community going. It would be previous city planners that have done Bridgeville's comprehensive plan have taken specific areas of the community and had them rezoned for 10-story high-rise condominiums. And that might be something to consider in certain areas of the community. The one city planner, Beckman, and I don't want to get into details, but they like the idea of putting high-rise apartments within walking distances of your business districts. I guess that's a standard plan that they use everywhere.
All right.
That's my only comment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I need a second.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Right.
Meeting is ended.